Good evening, all.
Hi,
I'm extremely
Bharti.
happy to welcome you all to this session. Shall we start with? Okay.
Shall
Yeah,
we go?
I
I
think
would
you should start. Just start. We have about 37 participants. It's okay. Go
I think
ahead.
we'll
thank you.
not waste much time. We will start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. So, on behalf of Indian Association of Physiotherapy, State Branch UT Puducherry, and IAPWC Puducherry, I do welcome you all for this fourth webinar in association with Indian Women Network Puducherry. Let me also welcome the organizers of today's meet, Dr. Supriya K. Vinod, President IIP State Branch, UT of Puducherry, State 2021 Health and Wellbeing, Indian Women Network, Mrs. Chitrisha, State 2021 IWN, Dr. Yashoda Bande, State Coordinator, IEP Women's Cell Puducherry, Dr. G. Santana Lakshmi, Co-Chair, 2021 Health and Wellbeing, IWN. I also extend to welcome the State Secretary and State Treasurer of IEP Puducherry. Okay, before start with, I would like to ask a question. Are we really COVID-19 ready? I myself have this question, but I don't find any apt answer so far. I hope you also have that same doubt in your mind or searching for the answer for this question. So we're extremely glad to present our speaker, who is a vibrant and dynamic personality, Dr. O. Kavipriya, Senior Dental Surgeon, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Government of Puducherry. She's also a volunteer in post-COVID Task Force Indian Women Network. So I'm extremely glad and I do believe that she can help us out to guide and to find the answer that are we really COVID ready. So without any further delay, I'd like to hand over this time to our speaker. Ma'am, please, this time is over to you.
Thank you so much. So I'll start sharing my screen now, ma'am. So,
Yes, ma'am, you can.
yeah, thank
Please,
you.
ma'am, please. Participants, kindly mute your mic and video for a good Zoom experience. If you have any doubt after this section, we can have that. So please do make this note. Thank you.
Okay. So a very good evening to all my friends and my colleagues and other people here. And special thanks to Supriya ma'am and Chitra ma'am for giving me this opportunity to do this presentation here today. And this was actually a bit of a surprise for me to tell the truth. Like me being a dental surgeon, and I'm going to give on this infection control was like I was thinking like, will it be okay? Will people like take it okay in a good way? So then I thought knowledge is for sharing. So whatever little knowledge I've got, let me share it with the people who we can better it with, or they can make a good use of it with. So with that in mind, and me being a very beginner in this thing, any other mistakes were made, I would like all of you to kindly bear with me. And for those questions which I don't have an answer to, I will try and find it out. I say all this beforehand. Mun jamin வாங்கிட்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் then we'll start. So as my topic says, are we COVID-19 ready? Okay. See, when I told this topic, only many people ask me this question: what is this pointer, re-establishing infection control and prevention pointers? What do you mean by that? Okay. So I said actually right now we don't have a pakka guideline. We don't have anything or concrete evidence for any of the things which we are doing right now. Based on whatever reports we are getting, based on whatever studies are being carried out, then and when we are just adding things up. So what this presentation, I believe, would be a collection of points for you people to take up whatever is relevant for each and every person. So basically, when we first started this, it was basically for the physiotherapists. So that was a sector of people like under the healthcare which could be addressed. So now our topic has become a comprehensive guide for all. So which means this lecture we are planning to target to all segments, like people who are having institutions, people who are running salons, people who are in industry, and along with the physiotherapists who are here who represent the healthcare community, and a little bit for the general public too. So with this little intro, I'll just move on to my topic. So no topic we can go about Corona. We need to know a bit about Corona. Like most of us know the answers to all these things, but I just thought I'll highlight these important points. Like we all know it's Wuhan city it started with, and imagine 31st December only they had told like flu-like cases were alerted to
Sorry,
WHO.
Kavipriya, we can't see your PPT. Are you sharing it?
Yeah, ma'am. Wait, I'll just
We can't. I don't know. We can't see anything, Amma.
No, there is a message from the participant too that the screen is not seen. It says Kavipriya Raja has started screen sharing, but there is no screen to be seen here.
It's on process, I think so, ma'am. Some time delay in sharing.
We don't see a PPT.
You know what you do? Start your PPT and then press share.
Okay, ma'am.
Open your PPT. Close your PPT now. Open it. Press share. Open it and then press share.
Anything is happening, ma'am? You're able to see?
Not yet, ma'am. It's not yet chat. It's blank still. It's getting open, ma'am. You can select on PPT mode.
Kavipriya, I can see it. I don't know if the others
we
can too.
See it.
We'll have to maximize
share,
it.
Amma. Press slide share, Kavipriya, then we can see. All of us can see.
Yeah, ma'am.
We can see it, ma'am.
Yeah, you can see it.
We just need to maximize it.
Elena, go ahead with this. Okay, yeah.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
I guess like in the introduction part, we are with like February 11th, I'll come to February 11th when it was named as COVID-19, and March 11th, by a month's time, WHO was announced it as a pandemic. So concerning the history of this virus, no, if steps had been taken previously, okay, regarding if we had known more details about how this virus has transferred from one person to another, if we had known more about it, the pandemic could have been prevented, is what experts are saying right now. So the current situation as of now is we have around 4.5 million cases worldwide, and around 1.5 million has recovered. And India, we currently have 81,970 confirmed cases, and in Pondicherry we have 13. The other details I've just given. Tamil Nadu, I think today it has risen to the second position in national level, reaching 9,227 cases. So basics are always important. That is what I feel. Even though we have heard n number of times the routes of transmission, understanding the routes of transmission clearly will help us to control the spread of the disease. So basically they say the mode of transmission is from man to man. Okay, and at this point you please remember, and fomites. So I'll tell you why this point is important later in my lecture. So people, I don't know how many of you understand what fomites are. Fomites are nothing but they are inanimate things. For example, your mobile, a mouse, or any other things which are artificial things which harbors the virus. Those are called as fomites. So when you come to the infectious period of this disease, actually initially they said 14 days. Okay, from 7 to 14 days it would be there, but later now it is 10 to 28 days. Some even say it is after 30-40 days also they are presenting with the disease. So this is like not constant, and it keeps changing depending upon the cases. So average number of cases, one infectious person can or cause infection to another person. This is called as R naught. That is nothing but it is a mathematical number which tell you how contagious a disease is. So I think you can understand, like for example, if a person gets a disease. Okay, how many numbers will be infected because of that one infected person is what an R naught gives you. And usually this R naught is calculated in places where the population has not been exposed to this disease, or where they don't have a vaccine or any other drug for the disease. That is a place where they calculate this R naught, or the human transmissibility range. For this coronavirus, they say one person can infect 2.2 to 3.1%. So how do we do that? How do we prevent that? We have to physically distance each person, and they say 6 feet or 2 meters, one has to be away. When this social distancing will definitely stop the rate of infection. The symptoms again, you see, initially we were telling 2-3 symptoms, but now no, the number of symptoms have increased, and the recent addition I believe would be the loss of taste sensation, which people have started saying they are feeling it more frequently nowadays. And the other symptoms which are regular flu-like symptoms like cough, fever, shortness of breath, GI symptoms, it's all similar to other symptoms. So the loss of taste they've added recently. So when it is severe, when this disease is severe, it presents with pneumonia, kidney failure, and death. See, typically, here I would like to reiterate the fact that COVID is generally, it is a simple illness because we don't have a specific treatment for it, and it has the high risk group, that is the elderly or the pregnant lady, women, or the person with comorbidities, that is having sugar or other cardiovascular problems, are suffering more. Okay. So how do you diagnose, or how do you find out whether you have a COVID positivity or not? Is basically done by RT-PCR. RT-PCR is nothing but reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction. So what they do here, what we do in Pondicherry also, we do the RT-PCR testing only. We don't have this antibody testing, which we all heard about, which was done in many other places, because recently the ICMR has said that we have number of faulty kits which is giving us false positive or false negative results. So we are not going for antibody testing, and we are sticking on to RT-PCR only. Okay. So what other treatment option is? We only give symptomatic treatments and supportive treatments and antiviral treatments, nothing else. So we give them good diet, immunity boosting diet, and Ayurvedic concoctions are also given. Precautions. This is what they say, the only thing which can prevent the COVID. From whatever I have read so far, I finally know they all wind up to these 5 points. That is, you have to wash your hands frequently, you have to maintain social distancing, you should avoid touching your eyes, mouth and nose, and you should have good respiratory hygiene. Practice you have to have for the good respiratory hygiene, and you should stay informed and follow the advice given by your medical practitioners. And if you have any problem, report it to the nearby health center. So these precautions, no matter whichever article you read, it comes down to these points. So basically, again, every lecture on COVID-19 is incomplete without the steps of hand washing. So definitely the steps of hand washing we have to keep following, because we hardly wash our hands properly. So minimum of 20 seconds contact with the soap is important. Let me tell you why. This is, you people would have seen coronavirus picture, which is everywhere drawn. Actually, the projections, the membrane, the spike proteins, which is projecting, gives it a crown-like appearance, and the Latin name of corona, Latin in corona means crown. So that is why you get this picture. Okay. So basically, what happens when you wash your hand? When you wash your hands, what happened is, the blue color particle, what you see, the one with the round head and one tail, that is a soap molecule. The soap molecule has one tail which is hydrophobic and head which is water loving. So this hydrophobic tail, it goes and it disrupts the membrane of the coronavirus, which is the outer membrane, which is full of fats. This fat membrane, this lipid, it attracts easily this soap molecule inside, and it wedges, it acts like a crowbar and wedges open the virus. Once the virus is wedged open, all the internal nucleic acids and other things are put outside, and the virus becomes deactivated. So this is as simple as that. So a simple hand washing, which you do effectively for 20 minutes, can seriously kill this disease. Kill the virus, not the disease, sorry. So respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette. So this again is important. See, just because I clean my place, I disinfect my place, and I don't follow any of these precautions, is not going to stop COVID from spreading. So it is equally important that the respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette are followed very well too. So this is, everybody knows the picture is self-explanatory. Only one thing is like the disposing of tissue is what I think we should be reinforced in our country. People use the tissues or they cover their mouth, but how good are they disposing of is the point which we all should take care about. So once you dispose of, once you cough, sneeze, you should have the habit of washing your hands again. So, and if at all you don't have any tissue in your hand, just you have to flex your elbow and sneeze or cough into your sleeves. Next important thing is the mask hygiene, because we are all new to masks. See, as dentists, basically, we have the habit of wearing masks. So we are a bit okay with wearing masks and all. But that is becoming a big headache for people who are not at all used to using a mask at all. So they find it suffocating, difficult to breathe. So what they do, they lower their mask, they pull their mask, they keep fumbling with their mask. So what happens is, when this happens, you are cross-contaminating yourself. So you should have the habit, like when you wear a mask, you should not touch the mask in the front. You should touch it from behind or remove it from behind. You should not keep moving it up and down or touching the surface. So there's no point then. And they say that when you wear a mask, the probability of contagion becomes low when both the persons wear masks. So this is again very important. And whenever your mask gets damp or whenever it is wet, you should have the habit of reusing or throwing it away and wearing something new. So in mask, again, I think we have one more question, like what mask should we wear? Okay. So mask, if you ask me, for healthcare professionals, I would recommend wearing an N95 mask when you are seeing a patient. But for a normal person, a regular 3-layer mask or a regular cotton mask would do. Okay. So not all of you should run to the market to get the N95, not necessary. So there were some of the posters which you can incorporate in your clinic or in your office buildings or wherever possible to try and improve the IEC on the corona whenever possible. So we'll come to infection control. This picture was a funny picture which I saw on the net, and I thought since these disinfectant agents kills, why not we do it? We put it inside. This was so funny, but just for the fun part. So first, let me tell you about this virus. This virus, we have to know how long it stays on a surface for us to disinfect it, right? So we should understand: does it stay on a surface? Does it live on a surface or not? So does it love that surface or not? So this was an article which was published recently. It says that the environmental stability of this SARS-CoV-2 virus, it is 3 hours in post-aerosolization. What does that means? Like, if you do a dental procedures, there is water vapor and aerosols which are generated. Any aerosol generating procedure, if you do, the air in that room, that room will have aerosols. So the virus could stay in that place for nearly 3 hours. See, on copper, they say it is 4 hours. On cardboard, see, we usually receive packages or parcels or other things. So they say on cardboards, it can stay for 24 hours. And in plastic and stainless steels, the worst 2 to 3 days they can stay. Okay, so we have to have a basic idea on what surfaces these things stay and for how long they stay for us to disinfect it accordingly. In a hospital setting, what they found out was, and they did a study in the intensive care units, obstetric isolation ward and isolation ward. Then they found out that whenever the objects were there, whatever object the patients were using, the self-print kiosk or the desktop keyboards, doorknobs, all had these viruses in it. So gloves also had, but rarely on the eye protective equipment they found it. So they came to a conclusion that these fomites do play a role in transmission. So they had come to a conclusion, but they are not still sure that whether it is true or not. So we'll come to disinfections. So disinfectant and cleaning, these are two things I think we should know. Okay, cleaning, what it does, it basically removes the dirt and most germ, and usually done with soap and water. That is how it is done. But what does a disinfectant do? When it applied on an inanimate object, it destroys the microorganisms. So for this, we have approved disinfectants which can be used. First is the alcohol-based disinfectants. The concentration here is important. Why the concentration of any disinfectant is important is, if you lower the concentration, the bactericidal or the virucidal activity of that particular disinfectant reduces. So there will be no use using that product. And we will think that we have done a good job, we have disinfected, but nothing will actually happen. So alcohol-based disinfectants, around 70 to 80% concentration should be there. We should use chlorine and chlorine compounds. The most common example what we use is sodium hypochlorite, chlorine dioxide. And formaldehyde, we also know, those in healthcare sector know that you previously for operation theatre, fumigation and other things, we used formaldehyde, but slowly it is getting reduced, the usage is getting reduced because of the potential of, they cause this irritation and burning to the eyes and other things. So they are phasing down on the formaldehyde. Glutaraldehyde is basically for instruments. So for instruments, an anti-corrosive agent is added to glutaraldehyde and it is used for sterilization. Hydrogen peroxide is again one more agent which can be used on instruments. So this is all the basic disinfectants which we can use in our fight against COVID. See, for using a disinfectant, as I said, you should know your calculations. So you just can't go to a shop, buy a can of disinfectant and then come and use it. That can't be done here, because whatever concentration we are buying, we have to know what we are buying. Sodium hypochlorite comes in different concentrations, 3%, 6%, 6 to 8%. If you find our normal bleaching powder, which we have in our house, that is around, I think, 5.5 to 6.5% of chlorine concentration is there. So we have to know which agent we are buying, what concentration of the agent we are buying, and how to mix it in water. So here I want to tell you one point that there are three different guidelines which are talking about the concentration of hypochlorite. Okay, one was the Indian guidelines. The Indian guidelines say you have to use 1% hypochlorite. Okay, but European guidelines say it is 0.05%. And the US guidelines, they say some cases 0.01% and other cases 0.05. So they have a differencing argument, but we will go with 1% hypochlorite according to our national standards. So now what we have to do, we have to, this slide I'll share with you later also. By using these kind of formula and calculations, we have to calculate how much of disinfection and how percentage of disinfection we should use. Like how do we get this 1% sodium hypochlorite? So our target is to get this 1% sodium hypochlorite, and also always remember that freshly prepared sodium hypochlorite acts better. Then comes this concept. So since we are disinfecting inanimate objects and surfaces, why not disinfect ourselves? Why don't we just clean ourselves with this disinfectant? Why don't we, just like my cartoon slide which I put, why don't we put disinfectant into ourselves? Actually, this is not recommended, and we had these disinfectant tunnels which had come up also recently. But spraying this didn't do any good to the individual nor the society at large, because there was no scientific evidence that just spraying an disinfectant agent onto the outside surface of your body, would cause you or make you clean. No, it doesn't. But what does it cause? Rather it causes irritation of the eyes, skin. It causes some GI effect like nausea, vomiting. Then the mucosal irritation will be there, bronchospasm. Some people will develop. So it gives you a false sense of disinfection and a false sense of safety, and it will actually hamper. When people think, that okay, I am clean, I am disinfected, they may not follow, or they may not observe the preventive or protective measures or the precautionary measures. So this may lead to problems. So that is why we say that this is actually not recommended, and Government of India had come up with the guidelines for why you should not use these kind of spray on human beings. So today's topic, I have divided today's topic into three categories. First is we'll talk, it's kind of mixed only, like healthcare setups, non-healthcare setups, and all premises, which includes general premises. In all these three settings, we have to look at each settings in these 3 points, like indoor, outdoor, and toilet disinfection. So this is how we'll be proceeding. So once in these three setups, once we know what to do, we have to have an approach of how to go about with it. So when you see for any approach, we have to have a primary or the apex target. The apex target for us is prevention. That is completely removing or making our establishment disease free. So that is our target, and we will constantly strive to achieve that particular target. So the top of the pyramid has that. So to achieve that, what is required is you need 2 or 3 different things. One, you need the engineering controls. What are these engineering controls? This requires a physical change to the workplace, which can be decided by the top management. Suppose if they want to construct what do you call hand washings outside, they want to put an exhaust fan in the system, if they want to come up with an automated doors, or they come up with some HEPA filters fixation. So these kind of engineering controls should be done by the top management. This requires a physical change in the workplace, so that has to be decided. So when you're planning your disinfection protocol in your clinics, no, you have to have these kind of approach. Next approach would be administrative or workplace control. That is what a worker or employer needs to do. Suppose for this portion, like you have to come up with your own SOPs, your own protocols, your own systems. Like for example, if we have a shift, decrease the number of persons in the shift, or increase the when you're giving lunch breaks, no, you have to give them in shifts so that too much of people are not accumulated in one place. You have to maintain social distancing. When you're in a meeting, make them sit far away. So these are all things the administration should do. They should also do something for training of the worker, train the person regarding this also. And finally, the person, what the person has to do, the person has to have the personal protective equipment. He should wear a mask, he should practice hygiene. So the base of the pyramid lies with the worker. So with this in mind, we'll go to what are the basic principles of infection control. First is protocol. See, first of all, whenever you're going to plan to start your clinic or your institution, you have to come up with your own protocol. What is the rules which will be right for you, should be so. With this, we will go to told you we divided it into the other was outdoor and other was the toilet. So basically, if you see, no, in an indoor area, every area should be cleaned completely before they are occupied and after they are left in the evening. So any visibly corrodes or it causes damage to metallic surfaces. So in those cases, you have to use 70% alcohol to wipe it down. Okay. Benzalkonium chloride also can be used. This we use in, if we don't have other option, we use chloroxyzanol. Chloroxyzanol is nothing but Dettol. Okay. If it is not available, then we go for these kind of things. This is very, very interesting and important topic which I want to talk about: ventilation and airflow. You have this guideline which has been released by the Indian Society of Heat and Air Conditioning institutions. This institution, no, they have the refrigeration, air conditioning, and all engineers. They have come up with a very nice guidelines about how to maintain air and airflow in the offices, premises, everywhere, any settings for that matter. So they say that for an air conditioning at home or other places, you have to maintain at 24 to 30 degrees centigrade, and humidity, you should maintain to 40 to 70. If you're not maintaining the humidity increases, you have these fungi and other things, which will start growing. And it is suggested that you should always keep your rooms ventilated. Even if AC is not running, you should open your windows and keep. Even if fan is running or exhaust is nearby, use it for better ventilation. If you're using coolers, you have to put it in a good ventilated area so that it draws air from outside. And in the previous slide, I wanted to say, see, they say the best and simple and most cost-effective way is to let the artificial, instead of artificial, no, the natural ventilation, natural way the air flows inside, moves away or pushes away most of the infective agents. They say 6 air changes per hour is recommended usually. So for commercial or industrial facilities, they say ventilation with outdoor air is suggested. Like whenever possible, open your doors and windows. Make sure the external air comes inside. Okay. The mechanical exhaust also can be put, and this is where the administrative, the engineering decisions will come. So if at all an exhaust is required, if the place does not have any inlet or outflow of air, so we can put the exhaust. Okay, so in this particular aspect, when we are talking about ventilation and air, we have to know the size of the coronavirus. This is important. Why is it important? So we have to know what it does. Okay, so usually, when this corona particle size, it is actually 0.125 micron. So it is very small, and they say this is easily captured in HEPA filters. Okay, which has the efficiency of catching up to 0.01 micron. So அப்ப நம்மளுக்கு ஒரே சந்தோஷமா அப்ப HEPA filter வச்சுட்டா we are free. No, I'll come to that. See, HEPA filters, they definitely capture airborne viruses, airborne coronavirus. But how do the transmission occur? If you remember previously, I said when a person coughs or sneezes, they disseminate aerosols or the viruses into the air. Okay, but does it stay long? No, it doesn't stay long. It stays for some time, and then it slowly settles on surfaces. So that is why CDC or the Indian guidelines or the European guidelines, they say surface disinfection is very important, because contact with the fomites from the surface, from your hands, it can go to your eyes, nose and mouth. So that is more dangerous rather than which is circulating in the air. So this may be of use or may be of help in cases where there is aerosol generating procedures like dental clinic or endoscopy, bronchoscopy. So these places HEPA filter can work. And if you really want to get, you can very well get these HEPA filters or air purifiers and place it in already existing vents, or a separate air filter can also be got. But is this a first line of defense against COVID? Answer is no. Definitely no. The basic defense against is what we already saw, the precautions of hand washing and social distancing. So what will happen? Somebody, you are conducting a meeting, you have started your thing, and you're conducting a meeting and suddenly somebody coughs. Okay. The answer, run. It's not run. What we have to do, see, we should not, like, this was a previous setting of conference room. So what we'll do, we have to change the positioning, make one person sit one seat away from each other. And if at all one person coughs without following the cough etiquette, we have to clean the area surrounding that place with 1% sodium hypochlorite. I'll talk a little bit for our physiotherapist friends here for the healthcare settings. So in the healthcare settings, typically we have to first clean. I'm talking only about environmental cleaning basically. So we start with mopping the floor. So when you mop the floor in any clinic setting, you have to use a 3-bucket system. First, you have to clean it with, you have to remove the dirt, then you have to use soap, and then you have to use the disinfectants. Sodium hypochlorite 1%, which is, you have to put it in, stay in that place for 5 to 10 minutes, it will work beautifully. I think we'll be clean of all the bacteria, viral and every other particle there. So next is surface disinfection. See, just as the floor, all the surfaces which are around the place in the clinic are susceptible to get infected. So you have to spray, you can spray those things of sodium hypochlorite, 0.5 to 1% sodium hypochlorite. And the minimum contact is at least for some time it should be there in that area. If hypochlorite is not there, you use 70% alcohol. See, in physiotherapy, you will have multiple beds and all. So beds and all, if you can use disposable covers for single beds after a patient, if you can remove and use, it would be really nice. So fumigation, this can be done. See, if this, I don't know how far fumigation is effective, because the things are for and against fumigation. They say, some say it is not very effective, some say it is effective. But again, just as the HEPA filters, fumigating the air alone is not sufficient. So we have to follow the previously told precautions. Now there is something interesting which is coming out called as a RAPG sachet. This is chlorine dioxide basically. What they say is this is what do you call, food grade or environment friendly, and very easy, does not require a fumigator, depending upon the capacity. So this, no, this is just a sachet which you have to remove, open, put it in a bowl of water and leave it overnight, and the place is clean. So, and it has been approved by the Environmental Protection Agency of US also, and the European Union also, and it is showing successful results. Next comes, okay, we have talked about air, we have talked about filters. What about UV light, UV rays? UV rays can filter, it can work, and scientists and researchers are working on things like for sterilization. They are also trying to come up with a HEPA filter and UV combined technology also. So basically, if you see UV light, you know, it's an electromagnetic light wave, which is a spectrum which is not visible to the human eye, and it is the range of 100 to 400. But this UVA, B, and C are the three types which is available, and the A and B, no, it is normally available in the environment. But the UVC is man-made. They have to generate or make this wave, and this is usually used for bactericidal, virucidal, or any sporicidal activities. So what does it do? How does it remove? So this was a picture. This is, I think, in China they have this where they sterilize the what do you call public transportations and everything. But it basically damages the nucleic acids in the virus. So it kills them basically in that way. But if everything has a plus and its minus again. See, though UV rays, you know, UV can be used for sterilization and it is equally effective. It also is dangerous to human beings. Like for example, if you're using a UV light in your clinic, no, you can put UV light in your clinic also, but you should not be inside, because once you're inside, it will damage, it will cause skin and eye damage very badly. So if at all we are planning to use it in our clinic, we have to make the system in such a way that the UV light should be set inside, and we have to switch it on and off from outside. So we should, no other person should be in the room. And there's one more limitation to this, no? What happens now if the light falls on an object and the shadow area is there, no? Once one side if light falls through, the other area has a shadow, it will not be able to sterilize that area completely. So you have to make sure that the light falls on all the surfaces equally to maximize the benefit of using the UV light. In that picture on your right side, this was given by a scientific advisory committee of India, where they designed this UV trolley for healthcare setting disinfection. So this trolley, they say they have to use with a special gadget. By moving it around the space, it completely disinfects the surfaces. So this is one thing. Next, we'll talk about personal protective equipment. See, this is going on, like now who should use PPE, what we should use for PPE, and we are already short of PPE and the prices are too high. So basically, when you're cleaning, you should wear something like a high grade quality thick rubber gloves, a comfortable mask, and see, suppose if it is in a non-healthcare setting, you are in a uniform, you can very well work in your uniform. It is not necessary that you should wear an extraordinarily protective gear to go and clean the normal surroundings of your workplace. So if it is in a healthcare, or if we are encountering blood and other products, probably you should be a little more careful, a little more of PPE is required. For physiotherapist clinic, I think you have less of aerosol generation and other things. So basically a face shield, N95 mask, and a small PPE, a minimal grade of PPE, not the full perfect PPE, this will be sufficient for you to handle the patients. So what happens when anybody comes to the clinic or anybody comes, first you need to evaluate the patient. Basically, this should all be in our mind that our doors are not open for everybody right now in this period. So when they come to you, you have to establish pre-check triages. What does that mean? Stop them right in the entrance only. Ask them if they are having any problem, symptoms of travel or symptoms of respiratory illness. I have attached a questionnaire. I'll show you later. So you can ask them that, and if you are comfortable or satisfied with the answer, if possible, get a temperature checker if possible. That would be helpful for us for a period of time. Get that, identify the patient, and then screen and put them inside. So once a patient, if you feel they are symptomatic, refer them to the COVID hospital. If you feel they are from the containment zones, again refer them to the COVID hospital. And try and encourage patients or your employers or everybody to install this Arogya Setu app, which the government is now stressing a lot. So now the indoor is completely over. Now we come to the outdoor. Outdoor, you need not be worried at all. That's what whatever I have read. Outdoor, the sun and the air will take care of it. Okay, so there's nothing much we need to do. But what we can do in those outdoor area is like in a bus. If at all you're using a bus, the bus to be disinfected or cleaned. It should be cleaned properly. Or wherever the areas which could be touched, the contact surfaces can be cleaned in outdoor areas. But we need not be much worried about the outdoor areas. The toilets, they say what we normally follow in our house, generally, that is what they're saying. That is, we normally, I think women, we are more cautious that what type, we will not use what scrub we use for the toilet for our sink. So we are very particular. I think they are pretty much saying the same thing. One area if you're using, don't use the same mop or other thing for the other area. They're saying wear a protective gloves while cleaning a toilet. So basically, very common things is what has been said. But except for one thing which I thought I'll tell you was, see, sometimes in a highly contaminated area, in a toilet bowl or something, when you're forcefully spraying something, it will create splashes. So when those create splashes, it will cause the virus to become an aerosol and be lingering in the atmosphere. So we generally avoid that. If you could do that much, I think pretty much everything else is what we regularly do. And they say one more thing which we should follow now would be that the buckets which we are using, that also should be cleaned in bleach solution or resistant hot water. So this I have, this is a standard protocol which they say for what to use for what. Basically nothing much. It's just the tables which are big. They're just saying use sodium hypochlorite 1% on warm water. That's all, and difference cover for each places. I think there's nothing much more. They're saying which is areas we have to target. That's it. So we come to waste disposal. See, once the thing we use, it should be disposed of properly. The cycle should be complete. So what we should do, the cleaning equipment also needs to be clean. So we should remember that, and you should discard whatever PP you are wearing in a safe bag. You should wash your hands after that. And if it is a healthcare setting, you have to follow the biomedical waste management rules. So this is a picture of the biomedical waste management rules which we currently follow. So this is a categorization of it. So I will share the PPT with you so you can have a look at it later also. Then we are down to what is it? Employee's responsibility. So see, it is not only the employer who should take care of all the things. The employee also has his own responsibility. Like he can clean the area whatever is there in front of him. He has to wear a mask. He has to practice his respiratory and cough etiquette. Respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette. He has to reduce the number of personal items he carries to the job. Yeah, for example, mobiles. Mobiles, like we should convert to this Bluetooth model where we need not frequently touch the phones. So that can be done. If they are unwell, please stay at home. This is very, very important. Can be misused to a larger extent also. But still, now if you're not well, please don't come. And you have to inform the organization or institution if you had any recent history of travel or any flu-like symptoms. So now that we know all these things, I just thought because recently, I think 2 days before, there was a factory which had a positive case recently in Pondicherry. I think most of you would know. So what would happen? See, suppose somebody is identified as positive, or somebody is said that, or a suspected case or a confirmed case is identified in your premises or in your institution. What will you do? Should you panic? No, definitely not. And you can reassure your workers that cleaning or disinfecting these surfaces with proper, at least gloves and masks, they will not contract the disease. No. So regular, simple, meticulous cleaning is what is required. See, first I've talked about in a healthcare setting, wherein there is a larger probability or a larger chance for the spread of the virus. So for this, they are saying first and foremost, any settings, you have to have proper ventilation. If the ventilation is proper, most of the point is clear, because once the air flows in and out, your virus is moved away. The second, use a neutral detergent and decontaminate the surface. Clean the toilets. If you have any towels, bed linens, curtains, use the hot water cycle for 90 degrees or laundry detergent or some bleach. Job done. Whenever possible, you use single-use disposable equipment. Not possible, try to clean and reuse the equipment. In healthcare, definitely the staff should wear PPE. And but because of shortage of PPE, they say that at least basically you should have the surgical mask, disposable long sleeve gloves, long sleeve gowns and blouses. Heavy duty gloves, if possible, you can give them, but otherwise it is okay. So what would be the scenario in a non-healthcare premise, if it is a school or a hotel or any other place where it was? So first, again, the foremost point all of you should remember would be it should be well ventilated. There should be fresh air for a minimum of 1 hour. Okay, then you should clean it again with the neutral detergent and disinfect with 1% hypochlorite. The other procedures, no, it is same as the other previous slide. Like use how to use the clean the toilet, how do you clean the soil linen, just wash it. That's it. Nothing more you need to do. So this is one comprehensive table which I found in the European Union's recommendations, which I thought I'll just share with you. For no, you can just have a look later also. They just say in each setting what to do. Where the S is the suggested they are saying, and O where they mention O it is optimal. So this is how it is, and basically they all use this 1% sodium hypochlorite, which we have talked, or the 70% ethanol. See here, no, if you can see the concentration of sodium hypochlorite, like I said, is 0.05, but we will stick with 1%. Okay, we will just stick with 1%. So this was a questionnaire I told you, which will be useful for in your clinics. So whenever a patient comes, ask them these 10 questions, get it filled, and then you can proceed. So after this questionnaire, there's something else also which I thought would be useful for you. It's a consent form. So for any clinic or other establishment, it is better that you take a consent from these patients and proceed with the treatment, because we don't know, like they may again come and blame us. And if you ask me if this is legally valid and all, it is better to have something rather than nothing with us. So this is just a sample or model of a consent form which I had made. And this I have put physiotherapy clinic also, hospital also, and the salon. I just for an sake of other enterprises where they can modify and use this consent form accordingly. So to summarize, for clinical settings, you have to definitely provide them a separate triage area, that is separate seating area. And first of all, you have to restrict them from coming inside. Then limit the persons who are there in the room. That is, whomever is absolutely required, only those many number of persons should be there. Like you can work in shifts, like for half a day you two are there, then the next half a day the other two come. So this is the way you should limit the workers. You have to refrain yourself from touching eyes, mouth and nose. Limit the family members and visitors. Please don't allow visitors into your clinics or other establishments without any reason. Only the person who wants the service has to come. Extra format bearing articles like watches, bags and all should not be allowed. Phone need not be allowed. And you have to stay updated. I think as clinic physicians or as treating physicians, we should know what is happening right now in the country. So you have to stay updated with the latest development, because nobody will come and tell you. We have to stay updated. And when and where possible, try and follow the national infection control guidelines. So there was two interesting questions which I thought I'll ask for in sake of the general public. So what should I do with my work clothing after I am done cleaning? So what will you do? Nothing. You just go home and wash your clothes. And then if you are going from the office and you want to take your clothes, you better bring a change of clothes. When you wear clothes, you put it in a bag, take it home, wash it. Okay. So some say I am working in a very bad environment. I am having a doubt that whether I'll take home a virus with me, or is it am I safe? Is my family safe? So again, for them, no. Just if you wash your hands properly and wash your clothes properly before you mingle with your family members, or you put your clothes separately, take a bath, I think you're done. Nothing much to be afraid of, or you will not be taking home germs. So you can feel free to come to work happily and go back home safely. So I thought this is the part where I want to say, see, first we have data. Usually the data will translate into information. But once you gain the information, we get the knowledge. But I feel that knowledge is not the only thing which is important. We need something called as wisdom to really understand or to make the knowledge effective. We need wisdom. About enlightenment, I don't know. I don't know how many of us are really enlightened, but still we should at least have the once we get the knowledge, we should know that the knowledge we should translate into action. Okay. despite knowing everything, despite hearing so many lectures, despite knowing so many things, one mistake of ours or one precaution less of ours, can cause or lead us to diseases. So we should be very careful. I think in that way we have to practice. Only these things when practice. No, see now I'm touching. When we practice, that is the way we can achieve these things. I have given references in this thing. References I have given in such a way with the links possible to you. So whatever I have told, all is included in this 3 pages of references. When I share the PPT with you, you can easily go and look into the guidelines for yourself. So I would like to conclude my speech for the day by saying this beautiful quote that out of the murky mud of life grows the purely beautiful lotus flower, trusting in its own unfolding. So I think we will trust on ourselves, and amidst all this chaos, I think we will rise above, definitely as beautiful as this lotus flower. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kavipriya ma'am. And it is a time for question and answers. So I invite questions from participants. Please put it in chat box, or you can unmute and ask for that particular time.
Can I go with my first question?
Yes, ma'am, anytime, please. You're
Okay,
most welcome.
Kavipriya, one wonderful presentation, and I hope you share the PPT with us, because some of the formulas that you've said, we need to, like, it's not, I can't remember because you've said so many points. As somebody who runs a school, right? See, all our schools all our centers have been closed from, say, 15th, 18th of March. We have not opened it. How many times do you think I need to kind of clean it up before I can actually let people come in? Especially because we also have a lot of equipment. What happens to all these educational toys that we use, because they are our teaching learning material? Some of it, I don't know if I can spray alcohol on them. Any like directions on that, on procedures on that, and what I can do? Thanks.
Actually, when your institution is not open for more than a week or 9 days, it is good enough that you just clean the institution and enter. There is no special disinfection process you need to do. Absolutely not required. So what would be required? They say no, the virus can't stay alive for more than that many number of days. So you can proceed as if you are just routinely disinfecting or routinely cleaning your institution, ma'am. So that is point number 1. Point number 2, you can reduce the number of stuffy toys or the toys which are difficult to clean. But other educational aids which can be cleaned can definitely be used. Okay, on routine basis, like just like the high contact surfaces which I mentioned, those things can be routinely disinfected with 1% hypochlorite. You can just make a fresh preparation of that in a spray bottle and use it regularly. So you minimize the, I always go for the reusability of things. So the number of disposables we use, the number of waste we generate, okay, the increases. So what we can do in that, we get these disposable, not disposable, the reusable white material. You get those and you cut those materials and you make your own disinfectant sponges. You can squeeze, use and reuse it. So what you can do, you can soak these kind of your own made disinfectant sponges in a glass jar or in an anti-corrosive plastic thing also. You fill it up with hypochlorite and you use it. So I think that would do good, ma'am. So you're good to go.
Ma'am, there is a question that can you recommend some brand for 1% hydrochloride solution? Like commercial brand, any specific brands?
Why do you want a specific commercial brand name when you get easily available form of sodium hypochlorite for 40 rupees per liter? I'll tell you, very practical. You get 6 to 8 to 10% for hypochlorite, 1 liter at 40 rupees, ma'am. Not okay. So even if you're going to get 50 kgs of hypochlorite, it only comes to 2,000 rupees. So what is, according to my calculation, which I showed you previously, if you are going to use 1 liter of that 8 to 10% hypochlorite, you need to mix it with 6 liters of water. Okay, no, 10 liters of water. Imagine, ma'am. So you actually get a lot more number of 1% hypochlorite than if you're going to go for a ready-made one. It will be way more costlier too, and I don't think it is required. So if you just take the slides, ma'am, and if you see those calculations, now you can easily work out with whatever concentration you get. Even if it is a 3% concentrated hypochlorite or a 10% hypochlorite, with the calculation you will know how much to mix. It is just a matter of taking a 1 liter and a half liter bottle and mixing it with water.
Okay.
So I think
Ma'am,
rather.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, one more question in chat box. How long 60 to 70% of sanitizers has effect on our body in infection prevention?
They say minimum of 5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes is the hand sanitizer should stay. But practically, if you see or if we put only, no, it hardly doesn't stay for that long. So what they say is, even when you're using your hand rubs, use copious amount of hand rubs and gently nicely wet your surfaces. Just like the hand washing technique, we also have a method wherein you have to use your hand sanitization also. So you have to make sure that as you're doing your hand washing on all surface, you should make sure you are dampening your hands with the hand sanitizer too. Okay. So that is what is important.
Okay. One more question, ma'am, in chat box. Social distancing and hand sanitizing once maintained in grocery shops and vegetable shops have now given up. So, and the well-informed commuters to skip and compromise while shopping.
I didn't get the last part.
I think it is more, no, it is more an information, or I can invite the question from Galaxy A30. Have you anything specific to ask? You can unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, Kavipriya.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
See, whomever visits home, I'm generally sanitizing their hands. And we have a wash basin also downstairs. The security makes them wash their hands and then they come up and then again I give them a sanitizer. The only question is is there any chance when they go around the house through their clothes or through their hair, can we get the infection? The social distancing of course is maintained, but can the virus be left on the other surfaces of the house through them?
See, the chances or the probability of getting it just because you're walking through your house is less, ma'am. If you're going and touching that person, if you're touching their head,
we're not touching that person, yeah, of course. And the hands are wherever he's going to touch are sanitized. So
that would be fine. I think it is absolutely fine.
Should be good. Okay. And one more question I have, maybe little funny.
Yeah, tell me.
So I want to know why there is no medicine to kill the virus, because when a detergent, as you said, it kills it, maybe something little milder than that can be worked on it when we can clean the surfaces and other things. So yeah.
Sometimes the simplest things are the most complex ones. I think it's very difficult to find answers for the simpler things. I think work is going on. They are not able to find a correct agent to actually destroy the virus. And work, I think probably they are expecting around November or so to come up with a vaccine. So works are going on in this. People are all fighting and all over the world to find out a cure for this.
Anamika, I will add on to what you have asked, because unless you give the virus a host, a place to survive and a place for it to hold on and become stronger, it cannot survive. Yeah. So that is why we say don't become a host. You don't be a carrier, don't give it to somebody. And if at all somebody has come and you know that they have a possibility of carrying the virus, you don't become the host too. Exactly. So it is better right now that you don't become a host, don't invite people home, or have a separate area earmarked if you have visitors, not everywhere around the house. Not at all advisable to take them around the house.
No. See.
Kavipriya, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like, these workers who work like, they come and they go, they have to go around the house, right? Only I'm not calling the visitors, I'm calling them, like, yesterday one carpenter came, I had some work with them. So like, all these things has to be done. So how to be little more cautious, I wanted to know. So
Again, the no touching.
yeah, no touching. Yeah, I maintain a very good distance and I give them sanitizer also. That, but only thing is I was little worried about the way they are going around, and their clothes and their hair also might have, like, I wanted to know about that more. So everything else is taken care.
Kavipriya, so if I can add, is there a risk? Our children would be wearing uniforms and coming. They would not come and change in the centers, right? They would be in their clothes. Even the staff would have their uniforms. Is that going to be creating some risk? Or because I'm not going to sanitize, maximum we are going to wash our hands and come in and keep whatever you said, follow everything else. But is there an added risk in to clothes? I mean,
as long as they go back and remove their uniform before mixing up with others and wash it out separately, I think it would be okay.
see, I see them coming from their homes in their uniforms in the bus to school, and they would sit in the classroom in their uniforms only, no? So would that be a carrier? Would that be a risk?
It can be. I will not say it will not be, but how much percentage or what probability of it is again the question. So basically, it is about even if the uniform is contaminated, if I'm touching it, it is not going to do anything because it's not entering my skin. If I'm going to take that hand and put it in my eyes, nose, or mouth, that is where the problem is.
Okay, ma'am. One more question. How to take care of office files and important papers? Is there any way out for that?
So what, ma'am?
Office files, documents, as in papers, how to handle them?
Again, papers or cardboards, it stays for a particular period of time. Okay, so either see, when you pass on, if I'm passing on this book and I have not proper precaution I have not taken, and I have contaminated my hand and I'm passing, it will pass, ma'am. Okay, there is no doubt. But the basic point why I was going on about the precaution was, we take care of ourselves. If we properly practice the precautions, this paper will not be infected. So this paper I need not take. When I'm giving out to other, it will not be contaminated. Unless otherwise, if somebody is not practicing the respiratory etiquette or the cough etiquette, they just sneeze onto that paper. Damn, you're damn. That paper is a high risk paper.
So in short, it's really
today I saw a video or an ad where it was a small handy spray with a disinfectant, so that it can be used inside the car for the papers and files. It costs around 528 or something. Maybe even you could try that.
I think many things will come, ma'am. Keep coming. I think now that is the again change.
I feel in short, for papers, we have to become digital India, as Prime Minister Modi has suggested.
Digital signatures and digital communication will be the way to go. That should be. Kavipriya, I have two questions for you. We saw that you showed those UV light equipment. Do we have such equipments commercially available, for free market as of now? That is one question. The second question is, see, we have a huge number of people working, and when these workers are coming in, like Anamika says, in a household, their dress material, you are washing the hands, you are wearing a mask, but their dress materials, would have come in contact with many other on the way. So is there a way to disinfect or sanitize, the dress they are wearing? How do we handle this? See, at the entrance of the factory, they are washing their hands, they are wearing a mask. But then there is visibly there is something which is not sanitized, the uniform they are wearing and they are coming in. So how are they handling this?
The first question regarding your UV lights, there are companies in United States which is actually doing what you call a plethora of appliances they've got for UV lights. the portable one, the mini one. You know, you have a wide range of appliances. I can share with you the document later. It's Fauzia, right? Fauzia,
Yes.
yeah. So I can share with you those documents, so you can have a look. And there is something from India also. The last slide of my UV, which I put that trolley, no, that was from India, and it was checked by ICMR, I guess. So I'll share both the articles. I don't know about the commercial availability of those products, but definitely I know in US it is available. But India, I think it is on the rise now. So probably it is a one more scope or area where we can venture into. And coming to your second question, is similar to what I think Chitra ma'am had also asked. See, we have a very little which we can do. There is, if we are going to see at every microscopic level, it is very hard game, you know, to fight against this COVID. So for children, it is very difficult to ask them to, you know, come with a additional pair of dress. Probably in your workers, you can ask them to come with a pair of dress and a clean set of uniforms, so that they can come into your workplace, change into their uniforms. Then once their work is done, pack that uniform into another bag and change into their older dress and go back home. I think some other ways practically what can be done, no, we should try and figure out ourselves. Majority, I think, unless otherwise you touch your contaminated dress, or somebody else, like a friend of theirs comes and, you know, touches them, or uses that hand as an indirect means of indirect route for transmission, I think otherwise would be good if you follow the basic measures. I think only that much we can do right now. See, for the government is very clear, or the authorities are very clear that they're not for this external disinfection spray. This will not do anything. See, normally only, leave coronavirus, normally only our skin harbors lakhs of microorganisms. Okay, there's so much of organisms in our body itself. So we can't keep, some are good to us, some are bad to us, and this belongs to the bad group. So we have to start, I think, one line which we should start living with corona. So I think that's how we should go about it, Fuzia. I hope I answered your question to some extent. But
Okay, ma'am, there are a few more questions in chat box. One question is, this is regarding pediatric physiotherapy, wherein small kids will come to the therapy center. So is there any specific precaution to be taken while handling them?
this is a very, very, what do you call, dangerous, or what do you call, you should be very cautious in this area, because kids are like, they cannot handle easily. And these kids, they may not be able to talk to an elderly to follow all these precautions is easier, but what will you tell the children to do? So I think in those areas, I think the practitioner should be alert, and the practitioner should be vigilant enough to take sufficient precautions before and after handling the child patient. Like, if at all you're going for taking care of a pediatric patient, what you should do, you should take necessary precautions, like you should wear a particular PPE, or get PPEs which are available right now. Use those kind of PPEs, and because you can't tell the children not to touch that, you cannot do anything to them. They would want you, and you wear a face shield, that would be highly recommended. Then use those things, and if you are not comfortable with gloves, wash your hands nicely, disinfect your hands perfectly, then touch the child. Once your procedure on the child is over, come back again, do the procedure of washing your hands and removing and discarding your PPEs appropriately. So I think when you are handling pediatric children, the game or the ball goes to the court of the practitioner. So the practitioner should be taking care of the preventive measures in that case.
Okay. And this question is maybe repeated, but for somebody who's joined late, how do we take care of the toys? Like a lot of kids will mouth the toy, and maybe during the session. So any tips for parents, you know, like parallelly, how as a joint thing we can take care of that?
See, I would say toys are very dangerous right now in this situation to be handled also. And imagine, no, even though from whatever I have studied so far, they say hypochlorite is least dangerous and all the other things, still it is a chemical. No matter how much you clean or disinfect, you should try and avoid or give them toys which can be cleaned easily. You should see, we have to start becoming creative. We have to start coming up with things. Okay, we should try and find out new ways. So unless otherwise we come out and find out new ways, I don't think we are going to stick with that. If, for example, if I say I'm only going to carry a steel water bottle, which has the highest frequency of harboring the virus, I have a higher chance of getting the disease. So certain things slowly. See, change cannot happen overnight, and change is a slow process, and it should happen for anything other thing in our surrounding to change too. So I would say disinfecting toys is a bit difficult, and for a child, especially if you're mouthing the toy, it's very dangerous again. So in that case, we should try and avoid those kind of toys at any cost.
Okay. Okay, ma'am.
Kavipriya, I have a doubt. Kavipriya, I'm Kavita from Chidambaram. Actually, I'm running a school there, and I would like to know, like, how to take care of the computer labs. Computer labs, what to do, how to clean it now, and what about, like, should we stop the students from playing games together once we reopen the school? We have all this to be done, right? Computer lab should be open, and even we have to have PT classes. What will happen to all that? Is it safe?
So, ma'am, computer, I just told in my presentation also, in computers, what you have to do is the major area where the children or the student touches would be the keyboard or the mouse. Okay. So, whenever, before the student comes to that particular area, make sure that the keyboard is covered with something plastic or some disposable kind of cover. Okay. Or a stronger cover which can be disinfected again. So that is one thing which you should do. The similar goes for the mouse too. If it is not possible, try and see, the keyboard is very difficult to clean with sodium hypochlorite, so the cover would be the best choice. But a mouse can be easily wiped up with an alcohol-based disinfectant. Easily wipe it up. So once the child comes to the station, you make sure that the child disinfects the area by themselves. It's a small habit which they can learn. So when they come to the computer lab, when they are sitting on a computer, they clean the area around them and work. And then again in your computer lab, make sure you place one child away from, like, not next to next, one place empty should be given for the child to sit. And regarding games, definitely until we are safe, until we get our vaccinations or other drug for this, I think games together is not a good option at all. So probably they can play on their own, but group activities is definitely a no from our side. From the healthcare side, it's a no for us. So otherwise, in the classrooms, so with social distancing, I think teach them the habit of disinfecting their benches, teach them the habit of cleaning their surroundings, teach them the habit of disposing of their waste in a good area, the correct places. See, most of the times, these things which we start teaching in schools will go up till their life, till their end of their life. So when you teach them these small things, basically, ma'am, what I am most concerned about is the people wear masks, people do many things, but I'm very worried about the tissue which they throw on the road. Okay. So I think those are the areas where we have to train people and train the children such that all these things, they dispose of also perfectly, correctly. Okay. So that I would think is more important. And computer labs, ma'am, you just clean your lab. See, the door of the computer lab, wipe it up with 1% sodium hypochlorite. Floor, you mop it off nicely with a detergent and 1% hypochlorite. Your chairs, you can mop it off with a spray of 1% sodium hypochlorite. Your lab is good to go.
Okay.
Thank you. One more question in chat box. How to handle patients with respiratory infection, particularly if they have come to us?
Particularly, ma'am?
As in if they have come to us for therapy.
Yes, respiratory infection is definitely a no right now for any practitioners, whomever they may be. You cannot or should not treat a patient with respiratory infections right away. Okay, unless they have their COVID testing done, don't treat them. It's a huge risk which you are taking, not only for yourself but also the other patients who come to you. So that is why in the questionnaire we have asked whether you have flu-like symptoms or respiratory symptoms. So if you're having that, it is definite no. You have all the right to defer the treatment or refer the patient. So it's a definite no.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. One more question. Any insights on there were a lot of things going, like there are kits which can on the spot tell you if the patient has some infection. There was some thing going in Pune. So has it come out in market, or when can we see them coming?
You're talking about the rapid diagnostic kits. I think
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
These technologies will come up now, just like we have for the other virus infection like hepatitis B virus and all. We have test kits just like our pregnancy kits or other kits, which we just have to put one drop and wait for a few minutes. You get the result. I think this is a future. This is a future. Probably after some time of some years probably, but right now I don't see it in the horizon. And right now, whatever antibody test which was done previously in India also, no, it has been stopped, as I told you, because we had a lot of faulty kits which was giving us haphazard results, and the what do you call it? It created chaos. So the ICMR, no, it has not stopped. If you watch the word, they had said we have paused. So the word paused means they're just putting it on hold. We are doing more research, and if they come up with good quality kits, the process may resume.
Okay. Okay. One more thing, ma'am, may be funny, but a lot of states also had started providing raincoats as a compensation for PPE. So, like now it's almost like Atmanirbhar Bharat, what we are calling us. Do you see it has a chance? Can it be a substitute?
Raincoat. Ma'am, I would say I would say it is not a substitute, because imagine you just sneeze on your raincoat. It's same as your clothes. So it is all like giving you this psychological feeling of being protected rather than being protected as such. So at the best, and the what is that, the time tested and the what do you call, the actual remedy would be prevention. So prevention is what you should do rather than doing all the other things, raincoat and other things. See, suppose if you're working in an area where there is a lot chance of aerosol, aerosol, like you don't know, people may cough, or there may be a huge amount of spray of water or other things. That places some sense it makes. Otherwise,
can I say something regarding this raincoat? See, if it is good coating raincoat, up to certain extent, it can save also. If it is coated...
Ma'am, I'm not here.
Hello?
I'm not able to hear, ma'am.
Are you able to hear me?
Little more louder, ma'am. Little more louder.
Okay. If the
Hi, ma'am. How are you?
Hello. I am fine. Hello. Are
Yeah,
you able
ma'am.
to hear me?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, Nalini, go ahead. Yeah.
See, if raincoat is good quality and the coating is good, so up to some extent it can save also. But remember, the coating should be good quality of raincoat. So if you're not getting PPE kit and the only raincoat is available, then it can protect up to certain extent.
That is good enough as a plastic, which we practice in plastic aprons, no? What we have, no? It is similar to that concept only. Everything is like, so that is what I'm saying. If you're working in that kind of environment, then you wear those things, it makes sense. Otherwise, simply walking around in a raincoat in this hot sun, I think we will faint.
Why I'm saying, because we are getting a lot of inquiry about raincoats also. So this thing.
Okay, ma'am, one more question. After disinfecting a surface, how long should we wait until we do it again?
Depends upon the number of persons who walk into the area, use the area, and I think what kind of procedures you do in that area. For example, if it is an office where only people walk in through the entrance in the morning and go out in the evening, once in the morning and once in the evening would do. If it is a clinic, and if it is if you are entering a treatment room, make sure between every patient you clean that handle of the door, no, change the bed cover. So it depends upon which setting you are, what kind of what amount of patients or what amount of service requirement clients are walking into your place, and that would do. Suppose if there are very few people, you open your you clean your setup or your establishment, and you wait and only one person walks in. No, two persons you can manage. So it depends on that. See, again, I'll tell you, it is all basically on that pyramid which we talked about, so that infection control in that administrative segment. There we have to decide what we need to do. See, an SOP needs to be formed. You have your previous data of what you do in a routinely in your company or in your school, or what amount of load of individuals come. So when do they come? See, for example, if it is a school morning, before the children arrive, they clean it. They have to make sure that after the break, they have to clean it again. Then again, once a break it is clean, it is good for lunch. Then after the lunch, they should again clean it. Getting my point, ma'am. So then once the children leaves, they should be cleaned again. So it's basically simply like if that institution management people sit together, they form a protocol or an SOP for their own organization. They plants.
Okay. Ma'am, do you recommend use of oximeters in the clinic or thermal detectors? Oximeters.
Oximeters, I don't think is required right now for us. That is what I feel, because we are trying to stop them at the level of fever only. Okay, leave alone oximeters. Why now we're going to stage of oximeters? We'll if possible, but I would recommend getting a thermal checker.
Thermal detector.
Yeah, I would recommend that. That would help us at least to find out or limit our patients with fever and other things.
Okay. One more small question in chat box. How to take care of mobiles which are not waterproof? How to disinfect that?
Put them in a plastic. I think that is the only thing which we can possibly do. Or you can wipe it down with the alcohol gel-based sanitizer. I think even that is good enough.
The mobile spray is coming separately.
Separate, there, ma'am. Another field is opening up.
It's coming soon.
Okay. One more question, ma'am. I'll read it out. Usually in our early intervention center, we undress the babies for anthropometry. Is it advisable in this scenario?
Analyze them for anthropometry, but how do you do that with the measurements and other things? You can do, ma'am. I don't think it is a problem. You disinfect whatever scales you're using on the surfaces, and it's good to go.
Right. So any more questions from participants? You're free to ask.
If there are no more questions, I think it's time to thank Kavipriya for that very extensive and expansive knowledge that she shared with us. So on behalf of the Indian Association of Physiotherapists State Branch, UT of Puducherry, the Indian Association of Physiotherapists Women Wing, and the Indian Women Network, I take this moment to thank her for taking her very valuable time off to be with us this evening, and she has shared her enlightening talk has given us not insight, it has given us a more clear view on how we should go about. I think the basic questions have all been answered. And I also take this moment to thank all the members of IWIN who are here supporting Kavipriya and us. And this is our first program under the vertical of health and well-being. So I take this opportunity to thank on behalf of me and Santana Lakshmi, the co-chair, for joining for this very wonderful start that we have had with Dr. Kavipriya. When I first approached her about this, I think the topic was also given by her. I just told her that we are going to talk about COVID, and she being in the task force for IWIN as well as the government, who else than her to be the apt person to talk about this? And I'm sure she's done great justice to this time that's been allotted to her. Thank you once again, Kavipriya. There was no need for a disclaimer at all. This is my opinion, and I think the rest too would accept, because when you started, you told the disclaimer. I don't think that was necessary at all, because I think most of the questions have been answered. And thank you all the people who have, the faculty who have joined from Bharatidasan Government College, and from Naturals we had Jayashree with us. There were many Rotarians who had joined too. So I hope this was very informative. You can see from the chat box that many of them are thanking you and also giving comments and feedbacks on how the session was. I have just one thing to ask you, maybe that if you will permit for a question, I can ask you that.
Yeah, ma'am, please.
I think we need to educate. It's not actually a question. I think you will also say yes to this, because I think we need to educate ourselves. We need to educate every person in our family. I think once we start doing that, the community is taken care of. So the first thing that we do is just like how it was when HIV was first detected many years back, and the alarming news about AIDS came in. The same way we need to go about with COVID also, that we see that if we are negative, we ensure that we stay negative. And if we are positive, we ensure that we don't infect another person, and we ensure that we become negative. I think with that, I think we will wrap up and close this session. Maybe we will have another session again elaborately on the questions that have been asked. I think has given the seed for another program. So we will go about, this will be a continuing thing. So till then, let's all learn to live with COVID. Let's all learn to live with all the information that we are getting from the social media. Take the good ones, take the authentic ones, and ensure that each or every one of us is safe. Our family is safe and we are safe. Thereby, we ensure that the community is safe too. So thank you once again to each and every person who has been here and made this session very wonderful.
Supriya, I'm back.
Back with a bang. I think you can say the closing words as the chairperson. So on behalf of the chairperson for 2021, Ms. Chitra Shah ma'am too, I take this moment to thank you, and she's here in person to tell you that. So I think this is the first forum we are meeting after you have taken over. So please take over this session too.
Okay.
Close with your words.
The first thing is, I think I should thank the Indian Association of Physiotherapy, Pondicherry chapter. I think Dr. Supriya was the one who initiated this, and I think we just joined in. Dr. Kavipriya, you rocked today, huh? Literally fantastic session. But I think what I feel is this conversation needs to keep going, because in the back of all of our minds, we are actually worried about our tomorrows, right? We are worried about sending our children to school. We are worried about our own workplace. We are worried about people coming into our lives. We are worried about everything that's happening around. But I think a good conversation where we can talk about our issues would, I think, rest us all in peace. So welcome to the new normal. I think this is going to be way of life, at least for the next 2 years. We would probably have rumors on and off. But Kavipriya, awesome. I think amazing the kind of information that you've shared. I'm sure that we should do one more post-lockdown when all of us get back to our workplaces, the kind of doubts that we have. Maybe in another 2-3 weeks, we should have a session again to talk about what is going well, what is not going well, and see if you can help us all write standard operating procedures for our own workplace. What are some of the basic things that we should keep in mind, what we should look at, right? And how things have to go, how we should not panic, how we should not know some of the do's and don'ts. One very important point that I think as a woman, which is very close to my heart, is what happens to expectant mothers. I know none of us in this group are anywhere in that category, but I'm a little concerned about women who are going through pregnancy, who are going through a newborn, having a newborn at home. How is that going to change? Like my last question is on that. I lost connection, otherwise I would have asked you. And in case we cut off, thank you all very, very much for joining both the Indian Association of Physiotherapy Pondicherry chapter. You have a great president, so I think she's going to rock the year. And all the IVIN members, fantastic to see all your faces. I wish more of us could put our videos on. Kavipriya, go ahead and give me that one last answer that I'm hoping to hear, so that I can tell mothers who are expecting what to look for. And thank you very much for today. Huh?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am. So, see, ma'am, basically expectant mothers, or the mother newborns who are having newborns. What we are advising from the first, I'll talk about what the government is doing. Okay, the government is trying to test these people beforehand only if they are having any infection or not. So they are making sure that they are now belonging to the high risk group. So we do not want them to contract the disease, or we are trying to make sure that they are tested. So that is one thing which is being done. The next thing is, as we all know, I think particularly in India, if you see when a child is born, we take extra precautions to keep the house clean. We take extra precautions to not make, we even put the baby in we will not allow people to touch the child. Okay, it will only be the mother, and in fact, we put them in a separate room also. Not many people will go, only the mother will go. So we have to follow stringent precautionary measures, ma'am. Stringent, I would say stringent. See, it is always, there will be a fear, or there will be a, hesitancy for them to go visit a health center right now. it is what do you call it, is unavoidable, and I think this time will pass. Only thing what we have to do is we have to reassure the mothers, we have to tell them it's okay, we have to just educate them on the personal hygiene on or the precautionary measures which they should take, and then go ahead with it. Suppose many people I heard are missing their checkups, fearing that if they go to the health center, they may contract the disease. So we are trying to locate these people, and in our sector, what we are trying to do is we are trying to locate these people, and we're sending ANMs or other people to their house to look after them to see if they're okay. So are they taking the iron and folic acid supplement? Are they is their HB all right? So these basic checks are to be done. So I think basically the thing here is education, ma'am. Like Priya ma'am had already told, we have to start training our own people, and we have to start practicing stringent infection control measures. Like when a newborn child is at home, generally we'll practice severe infection control, but that we have to increase it to a magnitude more. I think that would be, and all most important underlining factors, reassure the mother now. Reassurance and giving her the confidence that everything is all right and okay. And if they are they're having a newborn in this period, the child is a fighter already. So we just have to keep going with it, I believe.
Okay. Sorry, ma'am, one more question. Like it has been in news also, or on WhatsApp news, what we call putting mask for a longer time can have some interference with the pattern of breathing or oxygenation. So, like, how can you highlight that?
Yeah, ma'am. See, if somebody is wearing what do you call a barrier suddenly, they might have a difficulty in breathing. This is a normal thing which people are facing nowadays, because I told you, we dentists, we regularly wear masks, so it is not a big deal. Even some of my friends who wear masks regularly are also finding it difficult to stay on with that mask. The moment we take it off, only we gasp, we just pull in lots and lots of oxygen inside. So that is a problem. But I think cloth masks, a thinner variety of cloth masks makes the breathing more easy, and everything practice makes an individual perfect, ma'am. By the time you start wearing, keep using. We say, no, whenever we dentists, we give them dentures, people will not be able to chew and eat with the dentures at all. They will come and say, inga kutthudu, inga valikkudu, ennala saapda mudiyala. The same patient after a period of time will chew what mutton and murukku on that denture. So it is all about practicing the breathing. Okay, you can advise those people who are having difficulty in breathing to practice pranayama or increase the breathing pattern exercises. You can give them, and slowly start with thin layered mask so that they are comfortable, and regular changing of mask. When we are in a free area, when nobody is around, they can take their mask off freely. Who is going to ask? When no one is around, they can not use the mask. So these kind of small things, when they can do, I think these problems can be corrected. But I would definitely agree, people are struggling with the mask. People are struggling. No matter who they are struggling.
Maybe it's all about adaptation, where our blood levels also start adapting to the oxygen saturation. Maybe lungs adapt
to the mask. That much I'll tell you. We have been using mask. We will start. See, just like I told you, we will, when you get used to it, your system adapts to it. So you will, without knowing, you are breathing, your oxygenation level, everything will come to normal. The first and most important point here is that apprehension that something is blocking. That should go out of from the mind. So when that is there, you will start breathing normally. The nature will take its own course. So,
ma'am, really, thank you so much. I think you covered not only about COVID infection, you spoke about psychology, respiration. It was like a marathon session, a 360-degree one. Thank you so much. It comes as a blessing. It was the need of the hour, and I take this opportunity to thank you, Priya ma'am. Thank you, Chitra ma'am. And thank you, Dr. Santana Lakshmi. You know, like it is really a blessing to all of us, a need of the hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would like to add a few words because it's Kavi Priya. It was an excellent session, Kavi Priya. I can say we are a perfect friend, like me being a physiotherapist and talking about dentistry, you into the dentistry field and talking about physiotherapy, complementing each other. That was really awesome. Thanks a lot, dear.
Thank you.
So thank you all once again, all the people who have joined us. Many I have left because it's a very long question and answer session. But whoever has come has made this a very wonderful session for each and every one of us. A very memorable one. Lots of messages to take home. So thank you once again, Dr. Kavipriya, for accepting the invite and preparing this extensively and also patiently answering all the questions. Thanks to each and everyone who's been there. So take care, all of you. Be safe. As long as you can, try staying at home. So take care too. Bye and God bless you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Kavipriya. It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much for your information. I'm sure we all are going to take something from your slides today and enhance our knowledge and info. And it was really well said that it was a marathon, 360 degree. Thank you so much.